morning, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, for the introduction. My name is Nelisa Ngqulana. The idea actually for Media Factory started quite a while back from the many citizen journalism media training programs that I've been a part of via projects like the UNICEF's Children's Radio Foundation, trying to start a youth news agency via citizen journalism media training programs that I've been a part of via projects like the UNICEF's Children's Radio Foundation, trying to start a youth news agency via Media Monitoring Africa, and working with networks like Activate, where we get to bring young people into spaces to train them on media so that they can be the one to tell their stories, to kind of get the break news stories from their communities. The one thing that kind of stuck with me was the fact that a lot of these young people will go home with all these skills, and they're all revved up and ready to practice journalism in the realities that they live in. However, many of them struggle to actually make the necessary connections that they need in order for them to kind of get consistent work and make the necessary connections with news editors. I'm going to try this. Which one? Oh, okay. So then we came on to Jamlab to try and figure out how do we overcome this double problem of trying to kind of influence, broaden the scope of voice in terms of representativity, as well as overcome the really big problem of creating consistent work for underemployed or unemployed journalists, especially those who live outside areas that are outside of the main media hubs in South Africa. We know that everyone is either in Cape Town, Joburg, or Durban, and if you're not there, you're kind of out of the loop. And through some of the comments like this one, speaking to news editors, the general sentiment was like, if a story breaks out far away, person kind of like asks around in the newsroom, does anybody know anybody there? If they don't, then the story doesn't get told. So a really good example was the Nelisa fires, for example, in Cape Town. Nelisa fires were raging took ENCA, for example, 5 days to get there. And the first people to break the story were 2 young journalists who were working from Nelisa. And the rest of mainstream media picked up from it on social media. So we wanted to kind of really realize during this process that there is a real need to overcome this. I keep on pressing it wrong. Kanisile is one of the first people that who filled our research survey, when it was really became quite apparent for us that it is quite a real problem for many young people who are trying to build some work. So what is really our big idea? So our big idea is to try and build a kind of a virtual newsroom where young people or underemployed journalists are able to work from where they are, break news stories, and can connect to news editors. So if a story breaks out somewhere, a news editor can just simply access this space to connect to those young people. And to also kind of overcome this big barrier of geography. We know in South Africa that geography is a big barrier when it comes to unemployment. So this idea is just an aim to kind of extend the concept of what a newsroom can look like beyond what we currently know. Okay, so two problems that we're trying to solve with two, obviously, is this need for a real database of freelance journalists who are outside of the main media hubs in South Africa, and to be able to address this issue of underemployment or unemployment of journalists who live outside of the main media hubs which is Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban. So the solution is simple, really, that for many of the editors that I spoke with, a lot of them were like, I just need somebody who can take a proper photo and caption it, who can do a quick write-up, and somebody that I know I can rely on, who's also verified, as in somebody knows them. And the second, obviously, part of the solution is being able to provide consistent assignments and employment for these freelance journalists who live where they are. So one of our biggest ambitions is that we do know that it's possible to have a meaningful and rewarding career as a journalist in South Africa, regardless of where you are and who you know. So our process is pretty simple. The journalist an editor needs to break a story. They literally just log on, check a profile, brief journalist goes on assignment, journalist submits a story, and there you go. So also work both sides. If a journalist is in community, they can also pitch directly to editors. So the solution really is, at the moment, we are investigating a web application which will also be mobile friendly, because we know that a lot of young people don't actually have access to sit in front of computers. A lot of young journalists are literally using their phones to work. The database is going to be online, and we're going to be categorizing it according to skill. When we talk about journalists in this context, we talk about people who are photographers, who are writers, camera people, and people who can create audio. So the aim is to make the interaction as simple as just a simple text away for an editor, and most importantly, to have a geolocator where an editor can have the assurance that the person is where they need them to be at. And the benefit for freelancers is obviously that they get to have their profile up on an application like ours, that we will obviously be peddling to all sorts of people to try and get them consistent work, their portfolio in the space. We will also be exploring other opportunities that we can share with them via SMS, so that we can deliver on our promise of consistent assignments for them and link them to other training and event opportunities that will also obviously help with expanding who they are. So in a nutshell, what we aim to do is literally connect news editors to reliable freelancers at a touch of a button, and we take care of the admin in between.